Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time to be with us today. This is part of our Zeald Webinar Series, Keep Calm and Get Digital. My name is Rhonda and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. We have been delivering informative webinars with a lot of valuable information to support businesses to adapt and change to the new ways of doing business. Every week we're discovering new challenges happening in the marketplace, and we're paying attention to these challenges and designing these webinars to be helpful and to help you navigate through them. The country seems to be functioning largely well at the current level 2 and 2.5 that Auckland is in. Next week, the government will be deciding if we go back to level 1. I'm sure this is change we are all hanging out for. As business owners, you need to be constantly changing and adapting your business in order to survive. Being ready to change your business to match the constant changing alert levels, but also to what is happening in the marketplace. Needing to change how we do business can take some time to get your heads around. This is why we've been doing these webinars to help you in your business transformation process. Today, our topic is how to find the best website platform for your business. You might think this is a dry topic, but it is an essential one. Investing in the right platform can save money and help your business efficiency. Our expert today is Lisa. Lisa is Zeald's Client Services Manager. Lisa has a varied professional background, from working on dairy farms to working with some of New Zealand's top corporate businesses. At Zeald, Lisa is a guru of our systems and processes and holds a particular passion for helping SMEs adapt and transform to the online world. I'm looking forward to hearing from Lisa today. Just some housekeeping. So this is a toolbar at the bottom of your screen that you can go to for help. The section over on the right-hand side can help you if you can't hear anything. If you've got a question you'd like to ask, probably the best section is the Q&A section there on the side. You can raise your hand if you're wanting to break into the webinar itself. So if you're a bit nervous, probably the Q&A section or the chat section is helpful. If you've missed anything, don't worry. We will be posting these webinars into our YouTube channel and onto our webinar library available on our website, zeald.com. We'll also, if you've registered for today, we will be emailing a copy out to you as well, so you can look at that and review the detail at your ease, but also you can share it with other people. So Lisa, welcome.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you for having me today. I'll just start off with sharing my screen. So yeah, like you touched on, today's topic is finding the best website platform for your business. And I think it's not just something around starting out with your business, it's actually also, you know, you could already have a website, but is it really doing and scaling with your business? So it's always something that you should be looking at and be reviewing. So what are we going to cover off today? We're going to cover off some basic concepts when it comes to websites and website projects, what website objectives and plan needs to be in place, the platform types there are, basic and common website functionalities, and then custom and additional features as well. So cracking on into it. So basic concepts. I think this is very good to cover off first, basically. Just like with any technology or any business, over time, everything grows and changes. And so therefore your website platform comes under review to ensure it's still meeting your current requirements and also your future needs. So when I'm talking about basic concepts, they're just things that people well, everyone is not often aware of, and quite often I know it's something that I and others within Zeald are often reminding people. So if we start off, so your business website should never be viewed as a one-off project. It is not something that you just start today, you finish tomorrow, and that's it. Okay, so it is something that is continually evolving, because digital and your business are always evolving. And so it needs to adapt and grow with your business. Another concept to have there is trends come and go. Best practices, though, are tested and identified through results. So it is important to note that you shouldn't always, with your website, be trying to chase the next trend. Because in the long run, it can take away from your main website objectives. And a good example for this is a few years ago, parallax was a huge trend. So that's where, as you scroll down, your images sort of just disappear behind the text or whatever's above. And it's very neat, and it was perfect for websites where imagery was a real main driver. So thinking architecture, designers, cafes even. But for a lot of businesses, it wasn't practical for all the information that they actually needed to display on their website. So, you know, think something like someone who's a plumber or a plumbing business, someone who's selling crafts, a vet. Parallax was not a good functionality to have on their website, yet it was a trend, and we saw quite a lot of businesses just be striving to do this trend because it was the in thing, whereas following best practice would in the long run get them their results. And another concept when we are looking at website platforms and your technology, there's form over function, there's function over form, and you have to be ready to compromise. So you can't just constantly be picking form. So I think a real key thing here is sometimes people like to have very high resolution images, they like to have lots of videos, and they like it all on the homepage. But what they're probably not always thinking of is the functionality of that. So while some people with fast internet, it's going to be fine, no issue, the server's handling it, everything else is in place. But you've got to think about those who potentially don't have the latest and greatest internet, those that are working off dial-up still, because that can still happen. They're trying to load your website, it's taking forever, and you've just missed out on their you know, them being a potential customer. So you do need to be ready to compromise in certain spaces, and really, you know, as we go through today and talk about objectives and a plan, keeping those objectives, you know, the number one, and then compromising around what will help you achieve that rather than just something that's nice to have. So now moving into next area, so highlighting your primary website objective. Why is this important? So the initial key to finding the best platform really is going to come down to what is the main objective of your website. So what you will do is you need to identify the main purpose of the website, and it's important to do that because it will determine the primary functionality that your website platform needs to provide you or in your business. It's important because it will help you focus on the absolute need and must-haves rather than the nice-to-haves. And that's quite often what happens. I mean, I'm sort of relating this back again to a trend, but you know, humans are someone who get caught up quite easily with the latest trends. So you will all remember quite a few years back now, what started off as the Ice Bucket Challenge for ALS was there to raise awareness and to encourage donations for research. But in the end, it just turned into the Ice Bucket Challenge that was funny to do with friends. And so while the ALS foundations around the world still received donations and support, it started getting hidden behind this viral trend that everyone was sort of caught up in. And similar to your website, getting caught up in the latest and greatest can sometimes focus attention away from the main purpose of your website. You know, so this is why it's important to have this written down and be constantly looking back at this point. Another example here as well, which I will just touch on, is you can quite easily get too caught up in that primary website objective being something that potentially helps automate or simplify a business process. And so that's all back end and for your business. And so sometimes you can easily forget that there's some you know, front end items that you need to actually work on to improve your customer experience as well. And that way then generate more business and growth, and then be able to focus on the back end functionalities for your business. Highlighting the primary website objective will also help in identifying and developing the main pathway to purchase or conversion for your website once you get into it as well. So again, it's a very important process to go through, and without it, and without actually reviewing it as well, you know, you can quite easily go down the wrong path. So even if you're not someone who's starting out, you're someone who already has a website, you know, every few years you should be looking at this and going, is it getting what I need? An example is charities. You know, a lot of charities accept donations. However, charities are now moving into donations and actually selling branded products for donations as well, basically. And so originally, they may have started off just needing a way to accept a donation on the website. However, a few years down the line, they now need to actually be able to buy and sell products through their website. Now, there are a ton more reasons I can also put on this, but I felt like these were the three most important ones really to cover off today. So now that we've sort of covered off why it's important, I'm now going to say, how do you figure it out? So some key questions to be looking at is, when a customer comes to your website, what is the main action you're wanting them to be able to do? Is it make a transaction on your website, purchase your products, or make a donation? Is it make an appointment with your business? So, you know, book and see you next week, or book them for a course. Or is it to inquire about my services or request a quote? So, you know, find out more, or perhaps work in landscaping, need to come and see what I'd be working with first before I can give you further details on the service. So with these, it's important to really get down to that primary website objective. So, and that's the first thing you will need to identify there. Then once you've identified that, that's when you move into your website plan. And so with the website plan, that's where you can start putting all the other ideas you've had in your head while you've been coming up with your primary website objective. So this is where secondary website objectives come into play. So write down other things that your website needs to do. Plan out future nice to haves as well. So some of the secondary website objectives might not be something you need right now and needs to be something that in the future you are looking to do. So again, put it under a separate topic, put it under a future nice to have. Another way to also look at these nice to haves is to really pigeonhole them into going, what requirements needed to achieve those. So as an example, you know, you might want to connect your accounting system with your website. And so a requirement that you might have for that is not only a website platform that will do that for you, but think of a requirement as, I need to be doing X amount of revenue through my website each month, which then will back up the need for having that integrated first. You also need to think about potential marketing abilities and functions that you'll need your website to do, because a website is not by itself, you know, something that you'll be using. You will be connecting through to things like Facebook, Instagram, or even potentially, you know, your email marketing system if it doesn't have its own, and also promotions and other items you might do in a marketing space. So Google Shopping integrations as well is another example. And then the last one, which is probably one of the biggest, you do need to think about what your budget is. Now, part of the reason I put this here as well is because when you look at it and put your plan together, you're planning out your future nice to haves. So you are looking in the future as well. In 5 years, potentially, where do I want to be, or what do I want with my website? And therefore you could be allocating, you know, rough estimates of budget of what you might have in those spaces in that time. Now, my expert tip here is, really prioritize the need and must-haves first. When you are either starting out with a website or looking to change and adapt your website, you really need to prioritize those. And then optimize later and add in the nice-to-have. So again, touching on that, you know, plan out a few years ahead and sort of slot those into place there. So now we come down to talking about our platform types, and some platforms are better suited for lead generation and some others are better suited for e-commerce. So choosing between lead generation and e-commerce will help you identify which platform to use on your website. Now, a quick disclaimer here, while most of the platforms have the ability to do both in some way, I am grouping these today where the main focus or ability of that website is what it's primarily known for. Otherwise, we would end up with a massive list. I'm also not covering every website platform. I'm just covering the more common ones. So first up, we have e-commerce shopping online. So basically here, the primary function is e-commerce, so being able to purchase online. The conversion pathway is tailored towards purchasing and really completing that conversion pathway. So when we talk about e-commerce, we're going to be thinking about platforms like Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, Zest. So these platforms have primarily been known for their e-commerce ability. And in particular, you know, if I talk Shopify, Magento, that's what they started as. It was e-commerce. Then the other type is lead generation. So inquiring online, basically here the primary function is a form or a lead capture on the website. And the conversion pathway is tailored towards inquiring or generating a lead out of your website. So here, this one's a bit of the trickier group. So most of the lead generation platforms these days have moved into a space where they can offer e-commerce functionality. However, if I'm going with the ones that started in this space, we are thinking WordPress was one that started in this place as a blog, Squarespace as well, an easy to use lead system. HubSpot is another one. And also Zest has done both, Weebly and Wix as well, all sort of more towards that lead generation side. So yeah, as I said, most platforms can do both, but sometimes not both well, unless you have the know-how and the time to investigate and utilize the right extensions, plugins, development resource to get it doing both for you. So that is just something to be aware of when you are looking at your platforms. And I think a really good example here is WordPress is an amazing platform. It does a lot and it can provide such flexibility and you know, ability to really Google any plugin and probably find what you're looking for. However, the base of the WordPress platform can be quite hard to use, and you might not get the end result on the website that you want. Now, the reason for that is because most website developers and designers using WordPress as a platform probably have a page builder or a theme builder in behind that they're using to make it look, present itself well. And so, you know, there's all these little tips and tricks that when you're not in the industry, these things you might not be as aware of. So my expert tip here is, you know, I've rattled off a bunch of platforms that there are and sort of suggested what their primary function was originally. But this is a pretty straightforward tip to remember. If you aren't sure whether, or if you're not, you know, a technical expert, then go talk to one in this space. They will be able to give you some advice and guidance around this. Yes, in the end, you might go off and do it yourself. You might work with them, but I think if you just aren't sure here, it really is best to talk to an expert in the area. In particular, I would recommend people who are platform agnostic, so meaning they do actually work with or recommend quite a few different platforms. And the reason for that is that it means they're going to suggest a platform for your business rather than sort of just going, this is what we work with and this is where you'll fit in. So the next thing we come into is now looking at functionalities for websites. And so I'm going to start off with the basic should-haves. So, you know, now you've identified your primary objective for your website and you've started matching that with a few different platforms. Now we're going to review what really, if any of these are a no, I wouldn't be too keen to go with. I do want to just say another disclaimer here. I'm not covering off design elements today. So or something like website speed, what I'm focusing on is basic front end and back end functionalities that you should have within your platform. So generally, they should have content pages, and you have the ability as a user to be able to log in and edit those, add to them, remove them. You should be able to do that. Items, products, and category pages, so similar to content pages, you should have the access to your website to be able to go in, add items, remove items, change item prices, etc. on the website, and that should be part of the basic should-haves of a website platform. So in particular now for e-commerce, it should have a pre-built checkout and cart page for you. It's not something you should have to put together. It should have some payment options, and I say some payment options here because it will not have every payment option in the world. Most platforms come with a small range of common payment options, or in particular, if I focus on something like lay-by afterpay, that whole buy now, pay later system, most platforms generally have one, but then the other ones may be additional costs. It should have some type of basic order management system in the back end for you if it's e-commerce, so a place where your orders are kept, as well as the ability to email them to you. It should have then also basic customer management, so the person, someone's bought something off your website, there should be a place where it's capturing those details and linking those orders to their name. Also a basic level of stock management, so it might not be advanced, it's certainly probably not going to be an entire inventory management system, but there should be some basic level of stock management to be able to say, I have 10 of these on stock, and then remove one each time it's purchased. Now we'll move back across to lead generation, so some basic should-haves as well, and this is where lead generation does cross over slightly to e-commerce too, but pre-built form template for your website is something that a lead generation website will need to have. Also contact us pages, so e-commerce should have this as well, but lead generation should have a template one there for you. A basic inquiry management system. So again, someone inquires through your forms on your website. This should be captured somewhere in a database in the back end of your website. Cool, and then we move into just some other common ones, which for me, well, I should say basic ones, for me has probably really come forward in the last few years, and it's probably a couple that people don't always think of, but meta fields for SEO. So there should be areas for you to put metadata within your website for search engine optimization. And also most likely a way to easily connect to your Google Analytics at the least. Google Analytics is the main area to get reports on who's coming to your website. So that's why I am saying Google Analytics, but there's obviously a whole Google suite that it would be good if it does connect to. And then another key area is that it says it's responsive for most devices and browsers. So the reason why I am saying most here is because we know Internet Explorer, is coming to end of life. And so with that, it probably means most website platforms won't be supporting it as much. And likewise, a phone from 20 years ago, a mobile device from 20 years ago will be starting to be phased out. So that particular smaller screen size might not be as responsive as what it would have been maybe 10 years ago. So now that you've narrowed it down to a few platforms based on the should-haves, we can now focus on other functionalities that we need to have and where they might be. So looking at common functionalities here, so common extras is what I've called it. So for e-commerce, these could be things like advanced pricing. So having different pricing based on what size potentially this comes in. So, think honey, think different sizes of honey. Advanced pricing could work there where depending on the size you're purchasing, it depends on the cost. coupons, so being able to have a coupon functionality within your e-commerce website to offer to your clients. Product promotion, so being able to put a product on special for something that you're running outside of your website and potentially a website only special. For lead generation, another common extra is call to action. So being able to have quite clear buttons, generally are what these are, that you're able to use within your site to drive people through to inquire with you. And also just some other things like maybe a project or a gallery component or a page. That's generally something quite common within lead generation sites, platforms. Some other ones as well, so blog functionality. I think basic backend reporting, most platforms have some form of this. Again, yes, we have Google Analytics and that's a real key there, but it's also good to sort of see what backend reporting your website offers as well. Member and customer login functions. Probably should have put this under e-commerce because that's more where it sits. But you know, being able to have that ability for someone to log in or sign up and be able to do that each time they visit the site. And then some sort of social media connection here. So this could be something as simple as, you know, just having the icons and they link through to your page. But some of them could be actually displaying a feed, your Facebook feed on the website as well. But generally with most website platforms, there's some form of social media connection there. And now, so this is probably my most exciting one to talk about. I think it's a little bit technical, so that's what I enjoy the most. But we're coming to custom and additional functionality. So this is where you are starting to look at what your website needs to particularly do for your business, which won't necessarily be standard, but could be. But often these would fall into your nice to haves wish list for future work, or they might actually be needed up front. So by the time you're looking in this space, you have narrowed your selection down, I would say, of your platforms to maybe one or two. And now you are really getting into the nitty gritty. So really working out if this platform is going to be scalable with your business and your business growth over the next, 5 years. And that's why I said in the website plan out what you would like or some sort of key requirements of what needs to happen before you look at a certain function or ability. So I think the key things here to look for are standard functionalities of the platforms. So if you've got one or two you're picking between, so yeah, you would look at what they offer as other standard functionalities. So these functionalities, these are functionalities that just come with the main platform and can be used as and when required. But like I said, are actually already on the main platform. They're not an extension. So then that brings me to my next point. So plugins. So then something else you can look at is what plugins, add-ons or extensions are available for this platform. So all platforms have these. The reason why I have all three is because they each call them something different. So, here you need to be aware though that most of the time what you're purchasing with a plugin, add-on or extension is an out-of-the-box solution. So this means that they will work a certain way and only that way, or they have a certain or limited configuration that's already preset in that functionality. And so it might not quite fit what you're wanting it to do, which then brings me through to custom development and integration. So if you are looking for a particular function for your business, then you need to see, is this platform something that I can potentially get custom development on or integrate? So this is, when you look at this, you're thinking about having something that's customized for your business needs or the potential to integrate with other business process systems. Then I think it's good to also check out what support for marketing and promotion functionalities it has. This probably is a bit, like I said, over and previously, a bit that maybe wasn't thought of as much or would get lost or at the bottom of the list. Whereas now it's very important that your website can be used as a tool and component within your marketing and promotion for your business. So things like email marketing. So does it connect to an email marketing client? Does it have its own? Google Shopping integration is just a good idea for e-commerce in particular. So can it link easily through to that? And also, can it help me with any promotion offers I'm doing? So brings back to some of that basic functionality in order for you to actually create your own page on your website. But it might be in particular here, being able to do timed sales on your website. And my expert tip, last one for today. A website is not a one-off project. I know I've said that a few times. You need to map out a 5-year website plan, and then you need to pick your platform based on what will support that plan. I think at the end of the day, there's no point buying a 2-seater car when you know in a few months' time you're needing a five-seater car because baby's on the way. So, you know, take that thought into your process in doing this, and sort of look at the long-term growth of your company, not just the short-term. Questions?
Thank you, Lisa. That was really helpful. I've got some questions for you, but please, if you're part of the attendees today, please put through your questions at the bottom of the screen. There's a Q&A section there. We'd be happy to take them and for Lisa to answer them now. We do have a couple of questions that have come through from feedback from previous webinars, actually, which has kind of led us to having this topic today. So I do have a couple of questions already though, Lisa.
Awesome.
The first one is, what platform would you recommend if you're a startup and only have a couple of products right now, but plan to grow significantly in the next year or so?
Yeah. So I would say there is quite a few platforms available for that. Off the top of my head, you know, I can already suggest something like Shopify, Zest, and I know WordPress with their WooCommerce functionality. But I think what you need to do here is sometimes, you know, look at a couple and look into if they have limits. So I know one thing that's popped up a few times, I think it's Wix. I've had a few people go, oh, I can only have 100 products on my website. What's your limit? And I'm like, well, we don't have a limit. So, you know, those things generally are quite clear on how much you can have on a website. So that's just always probably, you know, if that's, you know, you only have a couple now, think about how many you will have and then what will best suit that growth.
Right. So try and future-proof your decisions right now.
Definitely. And look, if you don't have the time for that, then just go with maybe something you're comfortable with, but be in the right mindset that this is just a temporary solution, and in a year or in 2 years, let me review my website platform and look at if I need to change or if I need to work out how we can grow in this.
Right. This is a really interesting question. Shopify seems to be super popular, but it also seems to be the new kid on the block. What are its positives and negatives in your opinion?
Look, Shopify is an awesome tool. I've jumped on and I've played with Shopify myself and set up a shop. You know, it's an awesome tool, but it's around, you know, taking it back to what do you actually need your website to do and whether it has the functionality long-term to support that. So with Shopify, I think people really, really like the fact that they can jump on right now. I can jump on right now and I can set up the base of my website. But then down the line, oh, I want to do some advanced pricing or something quite advanced with my pricing. And then that's an extension. So, you know, you've got to try and think about what you need right now and whether it will fit with that. And so the pros are there that it can scale to a space, but then are you technically able to work out what you do need and what you don't need? You know, you could type in pricing under their extensions and a whole list will come up. How do you know which one do you need? So that's where, you know, looking at a website that maybe has a platform that has some of those functionalities might be better off for you, or working with a development team to be achieving that for your business as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm on a budget and not very tech savvy. What platform would you recommend for me?
There's probably, like, again, there's quite a few. So if there's quite a few platforms out there that can give you, I guess, more budget solutions, and there are free ones as well. I think you need to be careful when you're looking at free ones, because not all free websites are the same, and it's good. I know, at the moment we actually have an offer where something that's normally paid for is for free through our platform, and that's because, we want to see small businesses in New Zealand get online. That's what we're driving. So, that's a free website. Has it always been free? No. But you do have free website builders that don't offer the same, because that's been built as a free tool. So do your research around that. But, again, you can still look at your WordPress as probably quite a common one for more the budgets, or something like Wix, and then you start moving into Squarespace. But I think a key here again is, where do you need it to be? And are you prepared to put in money later as well? Because that will probably then drive what you're really going to look for right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. I just think what I also should say is that we are doing a free program at the moment with our GEM websites, and they're totally free. They're quite powerful, but there's something else to mix in with that decision balance as well.
Definitely.
I've got a couple of questions here from Mark. Thank you for your questions, Mark. First one is, what aspect of website build / maintenance would make sense for an owner to do, and what would a web marketing company make sense to do? Where is the pragmatic / economical balance lie?
So definitely not just one answer out there. It's look at, in your business or yourself as the owner, where are your skills? So I know some business owners are very technically savvy. They know they could jump onto something like WordPress and just go, here's the plugins I want, and it's all working how I want, but they don't know anything about marketing. So therefore they would hire a web company more for their marketing, their promotions, their strategy around that, and potentially even the design and layout. Okay, whereas you could not be technical at all, but you actually have a great Facebook following because you know how to get people thinking and wanting your product, and so therefore you're obviously going to potentially look at a company to do your website build. So it's plugging the gaps basically. What am I not great at, and that I can get someone else to help me with, and what could I do myself? And then the last thing that it always comes down to as well is, do I have time to do any of it? And so that's where I know a lot of people will partner with companies because they don't have the time themselves, and they obviously have a company that can do that for them.
Good points. Thank you, Lisa. Mark's got another question here. What needs to be considered with respect to website security? Are some platforms better and safer than others?
Definitely, Mark. We actually did a webinar. I did it on security. So I think it's security and maintenance are really good ones to look at here. So, I can talk about a couple. WordPress, the security and maintenance is down to you, or your website development company if you pay them to be really looking into that or having that solution in place for you. Companies, website development companies will have some level, but with something like WordPress, it's open source. Anyone can build a plugin. And so you could have that plugin on your site. WordPress could decide to do an update on their platform, and the plugin doesn't get updated, and there's a security vulnerability within that plugin. And so then someone can access your site, or some security breach can happen. So that's just something to be aware of, that yes, something like WordPress, you probably need to consider a security and maintenance budget. Whereas, you start looking at Shopify, Zest, they're more proprietary based, and so there's updates they do and they roll out across their websites, across the base of it. For Shopify, they do have extensions that they use to add on basically to the website, but those are approved developers for Shopify. They're not just anyone. And then, like Zest for us, we know that we've built the way we've built the platform we have, it's very secure, and so we don't have worries with that, and it's just part of that whole research on them. But you are going to have more risk with platforms that are more open source and simpler to use. You do have open source platforms that hold security very high themselves as well. You know, I think of Magento, that's going to be a bit more secure, but you do need the budget to be looking into it.
Thanks, Lisa. I think that kind of leads into this other question that I've got based on feedback in previous webinars. But it says, I have been told I should never use a proprietary website, but always get open source so I can own the code. Is it important to own the website code?
I don't think so. I mean, it's one of those things where I think everyone can argue either way. And I think when you do, what I would actually look at as the question is, I don't really see that as the problem. You know, you do take it back to the functionalities you need on your website. If a proprietary system is going to offer that for you and be able to scale to where you need to go, why let something like not owning the base website code stop you from that? You still own your content. You still own you know, the orders and the information that comes into your website. That's still yours. That's not the companies that you're working with. But yeah, it's don't let that be a deciding factor all the time, I think, is probably a key there, because likewise with open source, you also don't have control either, just in a different way. So, you know, you could wake up tomorrow and some plugins you have for your website just won't work at all, and that's the end of it. And now you have to go through that whole development sector again. And so it's not the fact, so you still didn't really own that plugin, because if that you know, plugin developers decided to no longer exist or no longer do this plugin, you can end up having factors and issues there as well.
Yeah, and to me, I kind of feel the security would outweigh whether I own the code or not.
Definitely.
You know, so it's part of balancing those factors and understanding them probably a little better.
No, definitely agree there.
Another question I have. I offer counselling services and want to promote myself. I have no products to sell, but maybe in the future I'd like to sell some maybe mindfulness kits. What platform would you recommend for me?
Yeah, so this is where you're going to want to find probably upfront, maybe more a lead generation website that has the ability to move to e-commerce. So while it might be something like you know, WordPress that can do WooCommerce with a plugin and abilities there, or it might be something like Zest that has lead generation and upgrade through to e-commerce. That's sort of probably where you're going to be looking. But let's say you're looking to start selling these mindness kits, sorry, I think it was, at the, you know, January, February next year, then you're probably going to want to look at e-commerce straight away. So yeah, again, look at that primary objective. How far away is your secondary objectives? And then work out how a platform can evolve with you over that time.
Thanks, Lisa. Mark's got another question here. If a customer has their own style guide already existing, so logo, color scheme, fonts, etc., how easy or difficult typically would it be to use that style guide, assuming it is suitable and market suitable? How easy would it be to use that style guide for a website?
Generally, it's quite easy. The hardest one out of those is actually the font, because there's particular website fonts, and if you don't have a website font, then browsers don't read and don't understand it. So that's actually probably the biggest issue in that. And sometimes people do, they buy a font, but it's actually only for sort of more your documents and media files outside of what you can actually see on a browser. I know I've run into that problem quite a few times. And so then it's a process of finding a font that's a web font and that is close to that one that they have. So there may need to be some flexibility on that, but you know, adding a logo to a site is generally quite easy, or updating a file for that. And likewise with color schemes, you know, the same RGB codes or hex codes are used generally in both print media and websites. So you generally can get that almost spot on. But again, it comes down to, you look at something on a piece of paper, you look at something on the screen, there's still a slight colour difference. It won't ever perfectly match, but it will still be very close.
Awesome. How do you weigh up the amount you spend on a website versus return of investment when you have no idea how well the website might perform?
So yeah, I think it comes down to you sometimes in that space when you don't know how well your product or your business might do with a website. Have you already tried selling it at market or somewhere else, and what has the reception been for that? Is it something that really, it answers some needs of people, so it's then going to be about getting out there? I think for me, you might look that your website spends quite low, so really focusing in on the base functionalities of it. So if you just need someone to be able to come on your site and purchase a product, that needs to be the main focus and the main thing you get for your website. Don't focus on any of the extras that could be great later on. And then I would suggest that you focus on the marketing, because that's what's going to drive people to your website, get the name, get the brand out there, and that's where your return on investment is most likely going to be. I have a good example where I've worked with a client previously, and they spent all their budget on back-end functionalities to basically mean that they didn't need their reception lady working on the website in terms of processing orders and queries. But what the issue is that the website couldn't be found, so they weren't getting any, but they had spent the money on that because that's what they wanted in the end regardless. Whereas it's like, well, let's try and get 100 orders through the site first and then worry about how they're processing in the back end.
Yeah, I think that's part of what our gem websites are aimed at, is to try and make that investment really low, so you can get online, you can start to see if your business idea or your product has some uptake, and then you can invest in the marketing, or even give marketing sometimes a go on your own, to try and make sure you get that balance right between investment and that return of investment. Hey, thank you very much, Lisa, and I really appreciate your time today.
Awesome.
I'm just going to reshare my screen. So being at level 2 or 2.5 in Auckland is so much better than level 3. Whether or not we go to level 1 next week is still up for speculation. But one thing we know for sure is that we are in the digital age, and a website is a critical component to a business and its success. There is an opportunity to put together a 5-year plan or goal for your website that is aligned with your business, and then review that website platform that you're on. Our prediction is that businesses that treat their website as a key component to their business and continue to adapt and grow their website will be more successful in the long run. Our recommendation is to keep a staged approach in mind. You don't need to do everything at once, but take small steps towards your end business success goal. So Zeald has helped over 15,000 businesses transform digitally over the last 20 years. And Zeald provides services through the Regional Business Partners Program. We provide a free strategy or website audit session with our team of experienced digital business strategists as well. Zeald launched our Get E-commerce movement to help businesses get online as soon as possible, and you can go to zeald.com for more details on how to get a free e-commerce website. Our next webinar will be next Wednesday on September the 16th at 2 p.m. and its topic is elements your website needs to be successful. A successful website has the power to attract, educate, and convert its visitors. In this webinar, you will learn key web design, copy, and conversion elements you need to incorporate into your website. And we have a library of webinars that you can have full access to through our Zeald.com website, so that you can catch up on previous webinars and also review the one that you've seen today. We really recommend that you spend some time looking through, because it's full of great help and tips to make sure that you're successful online. A really special thanks to our expert Lisa. I really appreciate your valuable insights today, and I wish you all a good day.
Awesome. Thanks, Rhonda.
Thanks. Bye.